Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some people find it super easy to stick to a diet while others struggle constantly, even with the best strategies? Well, this new study might have a clue. And it turns out the reason behind your dieting success or failure might be less about what you do and more about why you are doing it in the first place. Today, we're diving into some fascinating research that explores the link between our basic personality traits, specifically how sensitive we are to rewards and punishments, and our ability to manage our eating habits. The scientists wanted to figure out why some people can diet successfully and others end up in a cycle of trying and failing. They looked at two big ideas. Reward sensitivity, which is basically how much you are driven by the good feelings you get from rewards. And punishment sensitivity, which is how much you are driven to avoid bad outcomes. Think about it, if you are really sensitive to rewards, you might be more tempted by delicious, high-calorie foods. If you are really sensitive to punishment, you might be really motivated to avoid the negative feelings that come with gaining weight. The big question this study tackled was whether these sensitivities actually lead to successful dieting. And if so, how they do it. Do they make us use certain strategies? Or is it more about the reason we're dieting? Are we trying to be healthier? Or are we just trying to control our weight? So here is how they set up their investigation. They gathered over 200 adults and had them fill out a bunch of questionnaires. They measured how sensitive people were to rewards and punishments. They also asked about their restrained eating, which is basically how much they try to control their food intake. Then, the crucial part, they asked about their motives for dieting, like wanting to be healthy versus wanting to lose weight, and their strategies like being super strict versus being more flexible. It is important to remember this was a snapshot in time. They weren't changing anything, they were just looking at what was already there. They used fancy statistics to see if the motives and strategies acted as bridges, connecting the personality traits to the dieting outcome. Now, for the exciting part, what did they find? First off, if you are more sensitive to punishment, meaning you are really driven to avoid negative consequences, you are also more likely to be a restrained eater. And this link was specifically through your weight control motives. So, if you are highly sensitive to punishment, you tend to diet because you want to avoid gaining weight. And that makes you try to control your eating more. This is where things get really interesting for dieting success. For those highly sensitive to punishment, it was a bit of a tug of war. On one hand, dieting to control weight made them less successful. This makes sense because, as the study points out, trying to diet just to avoid weight gain can lead to that restrict is inhibit cycle you try so hard to restrict. Then you slip up and then you overeat. But on the other hand, if those same punishment-sensitive people were motivated by health reasons, it actually predicted higher dieting success. So, for punishment sensitivity, it is not just the sensitivity itself, but which motive you have that really matters for success. What about reward sensitivity? This is where the findings were quite different. Surprisingly, reward sensitivity didn't directly predict whether someone was a restrained eater or how successful their diet was. It wasn't directly linked to trying to control food intake. Instead, reward sensitivity worked through health motives. People who were more sensitive to rewards were more likely to be motivated by health. And having health as your primary motive for dieting was linked to higher perceived dieting success. This suggests that sensitive individuals might naturally lean towards healthier motivations, which then leads to better outcomes, rather than being directly prone to overeating. It's like they're seeking the rewards of feeling good and healthy, rather than just avoiding the punishment of gaining weight. And here is a really key takeaway. The study found that dieting strategies themselves, whether they were strict or flexible, didn't act as significant mediators. This was unexpected. The researchers thought that maybe punishment-sensitive people would be more rigid and reward-sensitive people more flexible. But that just wasn't what the data showed. They suggest a couple of reasons for this. One is that the traits might not actually predict strategy used in this group. Another is that the tool they used to measure strategies was primarily validated on women, and their sample had both men and women. So it is possible that for men, these strategies might play a different role, or the measurement wasn't as effective. Now, like all research, this study has its limitations because it was a snapshot in time. They can't definitively say that one thing causes another. They can only see that things are associated. They also relied entirely on self-reports, which means people might not always answer perfectly accurately. And the sample was mostly white and from the Netherlands. So we need to be careful about applying these findings to everyone everywhere. So, What does all of this mean for us? The big story here is that why you diet seems to be much more important than how you diet when it comes to success. If you are sensitive to punishment, focusing on weight control might actually sabotage your efforts, but focusing on health could lead to better results. If you are sensitive to rewards, leaning into health motives seems to be the key to success. It's not just about having willpower, but about channeling those core sensitivities into the right kind of motivation. This research really highlights that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to dieting. Understanding your own underlying sensitivities and then aligning your motives with those sensitivities could be a game changer. Perhaps future interventions could focus more on helping people identify and foster the right motives, rather than just prescribing a set of rigid rules. What do you think about these findings? Does this resonate with your own dieting experiences? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science explained simply, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the fascinating world of psychology. Thanks for watching.